Hi, parents. I wanted to create this resource because I've heard from several of you that, writing tends to be a bit of a challenge, especially with this remote learning format. I want you to know, first of all, that you are not alone. Writing is one of the more challenging things that we do every day. It can be difficult to have your child, sustain their attention for a longer period of time. It's a lot of work physically for them to be building up those hand muscles. It's frustrating, it's cognitively demanding. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I just cannot make any progress with this writing, most teachers have felt that way too sometimes. We feel like we're helping, but it almost seems too challenging. Um, or maybe your child just doesn't like writing. So I wanted to kind of give you some tips as far as writing narratives. And then when we move on to other types of writing, I'll make another one of these little videos. I hope it's helpful. So I first wanted to direct your attention to this Google Doc that's on the screen. I linked this on our class website, and it will also be linked. I'm sure that's how you got it here, got to this, but it's linked in our digital newsletter for this week. So our first grade writing kind of like formula includes an opening sentence, detail sentences, and a closing sentence. So I like to think of writing kind of like it's a formula, just like you would use a formula in math to solve a problem. And you're just kind of plugging in the sentences to fit and to really answer the prompt is the most important thing. So I kind of put some details about what should be in each portion of that. As far as length, I would say 5 to 7 sentences is a good goal to get your child to. In kindergarten, I think 3 sentences might have been kind of what you aimed for. I could be wrong. I haven't spoken to many of the kindergarten teachers, but at least 5 to 7 sentences. So if you think about that, one opening sentence, beginning, middle, end, 3 middle sentences, and then one closing sentence would be like the bare minimum. We'd love to see possibly 2 opening sentences or a longer compound opening sentence. Same thing with the closing. As far as the detail sentences, I'd love to see, 6 detail sentences. The first sentence for the middle telling what happened in the beginning, and then a sentence telling how the character felt or what the character said. We'll get more into that later. So I attached these 3 anchor charts, just some things that your child probably has seen in the classroom, something similar. So this one focused on a small moment about your life. The one that we're working on this week is a time where you showed kindness or someone showed kindness to you. Something that we really try to drive home with the children is that it should be a small moment, not a whole watermelon of a story, but a seed. One time that somebody did something kind or you did something kind. The inclination for a lot of kids is to think about, in general, oh, this is a kind person, she's kind to me. So, for example, my mom is kind, and they'll write about all the different things that their mom did that was kind. We really want them to zoom in and think about this one time that mom was kind and what she did in that one small moment. So, not all about every kindness that your mom ever showed you, but just one time. So, really getting them to focus in on a smaller moment. And you can see some of the other criteria on here. This is kind of a visual. If you think your child would benefit from something like this, I can post some of these outlines under printables on our website. That might be something that you feel like you want to print. Otherwise, you can definitely just have them do this on notebook paper or handwriting paper. But I know some of you prefer to have that printed outline. So this is the assignment that this kind of sample draft and this document is focused on. If your child did this last week, I put a note down here. They can respond more than once. If they are having trouble figuring out how to do that, please let me know. But from my understanding, they can answer a seesaw activity more than once. So if they did this last week, maybe have them watch the video that's linked again and see if they can improve the writing that they did last week or write just a different narrative. If they wrote about a time where they were kind, maybe have them write about a time someone showed kindness to them. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that they do not need to be doing a whole story every single day. In class, we definitely do not have time to do that. So what I instead want you to really focus on is the process of writing. So writers don't just write things one time. I always tell my students that an author of a book has written that book many different times, and each time it gets a little bit better. So I've given some examples down here. So the first draft your child might write, you tell them the prompt, you talk about some ideas, maybe they write some ideas down, and then you get something like this. So it says, my day was bad. I dropped my cereal and my brother taked my toy. My mom helped me. She cleaned my mess. She said, share. We played a game. Now I'm happy. So you can see, there's no punctuation. There's no capitalization. A lot of the words are spelled wrong. Even words like was and my and I that are those sight words and those tricky words that we've been doing all year. So a lot of times the first time you have your child write, if you're not standing over them saying, make sure you spell that right, don't forget a capital letter, this is kind of what you'll get from them. So as a first draft, day 1, Monday, I would accept this and say, okay, tomorrow we're going to look at it and we're going to see what we can find to make it even better. Because you don't want them to be sitting and writing for extended periods of time. They're just going to get frustrated. So this is the first draft. This is what your first grader gives you. Day 2, for the second draft, I would really focus on revising the ideas and adding details. So if we try to have them fix everything at once, it's very overwhelming. So as a parent, you're looking at it and saying, all these things are wrong. How are we going to fix it all? I would take it one step at a time. So that second time, I'm going to add in some details, a little bit more, and I'm going to think about the ideas. So is there something in there that didn't make sense? Do I need to be more clear about what actually happened and things like that? So this draft says, one day my day was bad. So in that first part, I added the setting, one day. I dropped my cereal and my brother stole my toy, but my mom helped me. First, she cleaned my mess. Then she said, share with your brother. Last, we played a game. Now I'm happy because my mom is kind. So I've added in some transition words, first, then, and last. And I've got a little more information for the reader. Up here, I didn't really have much of a closing. Now I'm happy. Well, in this draft, I said, I'm happy because my mom is kind. And that kind of brings me back to the prompt, right? The prompt is to write about a time that you were kind or someone was kind to you. So you can kind of see the progression. So yesterday we did the first draft. Today we're just focusing on adding some details and kind of revising the ideas, making sure that it makes sense, okay? This would also be where if your child was all over the place with their topic, you would have them take out things that didn't really fit in the story, okay? So that's the second draft. So maybe you did draft 1 on Monday, draft 2 on Tuesday. The rest of it, they're just copying. And I always tell them that, you're not having to add anything new except these few things. Draft 3, this is where we get to the mechanics. Now, for your first grader, they're not going to spell everything right, and that's okay. I know it's tempting to just tell them how to spell it. Please, please really encourage them to think about those letterland patterns. If you have like a word wall at home or a place where you can write words that they're constantly using, that would be really helpful. That's something I can add to my website. Because there's a lot of those high frequency words that they're used to being able to look at the wall in our classroom to spell. But for example, the word day, that's in our spelling words from last week, the Mr. A goes walking. So that's a reminder you can give them. Remember, Mr. A goes walking. Mr. I isn't at the end because he gets dizzy. Yellow yo-yo man is at the end. So those reminders. You're focusing on spelling, punctuation, capitalization. Obviously on this draft, since I wrote it, everything has been corrected. That's not necessarily a realistic expectation for a first grader. However, you can choose to be as nitpicky with this as you want. If you want every single letter to be or word to be spelled correctly and you think your child can handle that, 100% go for it. If you feel like your child's getting frustrated, I might just pick the words that you absolutely know that they know how to spell, focus on the first word of each sentence being capitalized and having a period or another punctuation at the end. If there's words like brother, cereal, stole, that they might be a little trickier that you know that they might not know how to spell, let them kind of sound it out and let it go, because not every single word needs to be perfectly spelled for them to be on grade level in writing. So this third draft says, one day my day was bad. I dropped my cereal and my brother stole my favorite toy. But then my mom helped make my day better. First, she cleaned up my mess. Then she said to share my toy. Last, we played a game together. Now I am happy because my mom was kind. So you can see again, I'm kind of improving not only the mechanics, the grammar, the usage, and things like that, but I'm still kind of tweaking the ideas and the words to make it even better. Now, if this were turned in, this would be a 3 on a report card. This is a first grade personal narrative that has everything that we are looking for. Okay. One thing that might be missing is some dialogue. That's something that I did not add in this particular narrative. So that's something that if I were to redo this, I could add some dialogue. This fourth draft is where I'm kind of improving clarity and adding like an author's voice. So this is where you might have your child have a hook at the beginning. Like, have you ever had a really bad day? The possibilities are endless, but just for the purposes of this explanation, making sure that everything is really clear. The reader doesn't need to have any background to understand it, and you're adding that voice as a writer. So it says, one day I was having a very bad day. That's a little bit more clear than one day my day was bad. That's a small correction that I made. I dropped my cereal and my brother stole my favorite toy. But then my mom helped make my day better. Again, that's a little bit of a improvement on the way that I worded it before. First, she cleaned up my mess. Then she said to share my toy with my brother. Last, we played a game together. Now my day is better because my mom was kind. Thanks, Mom. So that thanks, Mom at the end is kind of showing voice. This would be kind of more towards a level 4, 3 or 4 in reading, or in writing on a report card, just an example. So I have my opening sentence. I actually have 2 opening sentences that kind of set the stage. I have the different events, and I have a closing. To improve this even more, I could do a 5th draft. So if you wanted to have them do the same writing every day of the week, and then on Friday kind of have a final copy that you upload to Seesaw, if I were to do a 5th draft of this, I would add some dialogue and maybe say, I felt sad, I felt happy, I was glad that my mom helped me, and things like that. So adding in those feelings and those that dialogue would make it even better. So if you're kind of feeling like, my child writes 3 sentences every day or 5 sentences, and then we don't really know what to do next, I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of guidance. I know that this remote learning has its challenges, and many of you are working from home and things like that. So I hope that this helps a little bit. If not, please reach out and let me know how I can be more supportive, especially with whatever you need support with. I'm happy to create resources, so just let me know. Thank you. Have a good day.